How far is too far? That's the question. After the resignation of a legendary photographer and professor at the Massachusetts College of Art and Design, many are debating where is the line you don't cross when it comes to artistic expression. A warning, some of the things we're about to talk about are graphic. Nicholas Nixon is best known for the Brown sisters, a series of yearly portraits he shot over 40 years of his wife and her 3 sisters. But according to the Boston Globe, he abruptly retired from MassArt last month after he was accused of inappropriate behavior, including asking some then-current students to pose nude, assigning students to photograph the genitalia of others, telling them to analyze photos of his own penis, and regularly making lewd comments like the time he told a student in class, quote, "You have an amazing ass," as well as emailing a student to recount an erotic dream he'd had about her. Remarkably, the Globe reports that not a single person they contacted filed a complaint with the school until the paper started investigating. Prior to his retirement, Nixon told the Globe, quote, "I encourage students to accept and use their sexuality as part of their putting the best they have into their work. I've never hit on, touched, or done anything personal." But then he said in a later statement, "I realized that I should have censored myself more. To those students, I offer my profound apology." And he's not the only professor stirring up controversy at MassArt. Joining me now are Malcom Gay, arts reporter for the Boston Globe, who's been investigating this over the past several months. Good to meet you, Malcom.
Nice to meet you.
And Zoe Perry-Wood is a former student of Nixon's, now a social documentary photographer. We also invited MassArt President David Nelson to join us, but he was unavailable. Good to meet you, Zoe, as well.
Nice to meet you as well.
I want to be clear, of the 25 people you contacted, none of them said they had filed complaints, but we have no idea if other people had filed complaints about Nixon in days gone by. Is that
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, so we probably spoke with 25, 30 people. Each one of them, I mean, the way we reported that was very careful. We didn't name Nixon in any of our conversations. We allowed them to name Nixon, and many of them did right off the bat. All of them said they didn't actually complain at the time.
And is it because, did you go so far as to find out, is it because they didn't think it was a problem at the time, it was a different time, and now not only they reached out to it's the Me Too era, right. Did they explain why they hadn't?
Yeah, so it was a combination of factors, right? One, they thought, I mean, many of them said that Nixon was, or they believed at the time, that Nixon was pushing them to become a stronger artist, a more edgy artist, a more engaged artist, and it was kind of part of the process. The other is that they felt that nothing would be done, that he'd been doing this for so long with impunity, and therefore that those complaints wouldn't actually matter.
As a former student, were you surprised by any of this when you read about it in the Globe?
I was very surprised.
You were surprised?
Surprised and disappointed, yes.
Well, tell me the first part first. Why were you surprised?
Well, my experience of Nick when I was a student there was, you know, the best of Nick was he would read to us during class from James Agee's Let Us Now Praise Famous Men, and he wanted, and other Southern literature, and he wanted us to make that connection between great literature and great photography, and, you know, that's the, you know, he was a very impressive and inspirational photographer who built bodies of work. And he really showed us what it meant to work on a project over time, such as the Brown sisters.
And no indication of what Malcolm and Kay Lazar were reporting in the Globe in your time there?
Not in my time, not in my experience or my time there.
When you read comments like in Malcolm's story and in the larger debate that's being had about in art, it's different than the rest of the world. You have to push boundaries. You have to be edgy. Sometimes you have to be inappropriate. Does that, based on what you read about these incidents, these allegations, does that convince you that it was okay what he did? Where are you on that boundary and whether he crossed it?
Well, I mean, I think that you have to take seriously the power imbalance between teacher and student. You know, it's one thing when you're an artist and you're doing nudes, whether you're painting or photographing nudes, you have to think about your model and your relationship between you and your model, and you have to be careful not to cross certain boundaries. And I don't know if he did. It sounded like at times he might have. I don't know, but also the teacher-student relationship. There's a huge power imbalance there, and especially for a straight white male, there you are with a lot of power that you don't realize you have, and you have to be very thoughtful about that.
I mean, that is the issue here. I mean, it seems that without putting you into editorial territory, the central theme is the professor-student power imbalance? I mean, if he had asked a student in another class or another place, can you pose nude for me? One of the things
specifically posing nude.
Posing nude for
yeah,
that would not be an issue, would it?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke with I've spoken with several photography professors specifically. Some of them gasped when we said he was asking students to pose nude. They gasped. They were kind of
his own students to pose nude.
Yes, absolutely. When you're, obviously posing nude is not an issue if it's done, among two people who don't necessarily know each other. There are obviously ethical boundaries and guidelines that you have to adhere to. But the power imbalance between, as one of the professors says, the student has no power in that relationship. How do you say no to someone who's your professor who asked you to pose nude?
One of the examples in your story that I forgot to mention that I apologize for. Was it 4 students who were asked individually to come into an office and get topless so that photographs could be taken? One of the things I don't understand at all in your story, Malcolm, is the school, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the school saying they wouldn't comment on whether or not they had a policy about teachers asking their students to pose nude? Why would one not be transparent
so
about
they shut us down every step of the way on this story. We tried to contact them repeatedly about, trying to talk to them about Nixon, trying to talk to them about the allegations, trying to talk to them about, the story we'd been working on for months. They referred us to the letter that they publicly released.
So do you know if there, I know you haven't been there in a bit. I found that, it would seem to me that one of the things you would want to assure after a story, an incoming student, the parents of or at least the student considering, the rule is the following. The ethics is a professor does not ask a student in his or her class to pose nude, etc. Does that trouble you that they're refusing to disclose that to the globe and then turn to the public?
Yeah, to some degree, yes. I think that MassArt really right now is going through a process of really looking at community and the future with the new president coming in. And I'm on the Alumni Leadership Council.
Oh, you are?
Yes, and we're meeting. We've been having meetings, and we're meeting even next week to talk about climate on campus.
By the way, as I said, this is not the only circumstance. This soul, is it Levine, how you say the last name? Levine?
I believe so.
Who shows a video of himself having sex with his partner to his class.
I was not aware of that.
You were not aware of that?
No.
Well, that's another issue that's going on. I assume the answer is you don't know because they wouldn't talk to you. Are they concerned about this? Not one incident, but 2 does not exactly send the best message.
I don't know because they wouldn't talk to me. But they've sent out several statements to their alumni and to their communities saying, this is a big issue. We're looking at it. We're trying to do our best to reassess the climate on campus.
Malcolm, you did great reporting.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Good to see you. Zoe, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to
Thank
meet
you so
you.
much for being here. I really appreciate it.